Heilige Tanya, Perek Tes. Let's talk about where the soul resides. Let's do a little bit of spiritual anatomy here. Vehine, Makom Mishkan Nefesh HaBahamis. The Nefesh HaBahamis, your animal soul, that animalistic drive inside of us, which we explained for Yisrael's Klipus Noiga, Shemek Klipus Noiga, the Kol Ish Yisrael. Where is that? Where's the primary headquarters? Who? The Lev. The Chalal Smoili. Your animal soul, i.e. the consciousness, the energy of it is in the left side of your heart. Why the left side? The left side is always, as we know, the Yetzer Hara side. And even I was speaking to a number of medical students about this. The Balatanya points out, there's always more blood in the left side because the left side of the heart is the side that pushes the blood out to the body. The right side of the heart is the side that receives all the deoxygenated blood, the right ventricle, and then it pushes it into the lungs. The lungs then oxygenate the blood, and then the blood goes through the capillaries and through the back to the left ventricle. The left ventricle takes this very fiery, red, oxygenated blood and pumps it through the body. So it's that part that's very engaged with it's very alive, if you will. So that's an analogy of Nefesh HaBahamis. V'ksiv, ki adam hu nefesh. The blood is the resting place of the animal soul. That's where you'll find the animal soul. Like we explained, the blood is also the most animalistic part of us. It's the part that just gives you animation. That's why we're not allowed to eat blood as Yidden, because we can't take on that animalistic quality, the dam, the blood. Whereas there have been idol-worshipping people around the world that a big thing that they did was drink the blood. That's not for naught. They drink the blood because they want to take on those powers. Or they drink lion blood, or they drink, I know it's disgusting, or worse, human blood. Because they're sick. And there's sick people out there. Yeah.
Isn't it drinking blood for the breast meal?
No, it's not drinking. There's no drinking of any blood. No. That's a medical procedure to just draw to make the capillaries smaller to allow for more clotting to happen at the location. But there's no zero drinking of any blood. Yeah.
What does it represent then to throw blood on the Mizbeach?
So the whole kapara is that's the whole idea of you bringing the korban and the shechting is that you're saying that should be me. This really should be me. I became this animal soul. I became this animal. Really, me should be up on the Mizbeach. I should be shechted. God gave us a gift that I'm able to have a representation of me, this animal, go on the Mizbeach, which is the greatest elevation because I'm doing tshuva. That's why you have to do tshuva at that moment. And then you take that meat and you eat it. And the Kohanim eat it, different types of korbanos. The Kohen eats it and elevates it. That's all the power of tshuva. Tzaddikim, though, they stay very far away from the Nefesh HaBahamis and are very careful with it. And dam is a very, very intense thing by us. Being very careful of blood, consuming blood. There are all these bad midas, hein belev. It's that your emotion just went wild. Why did you get angry? Did you make an intellectual decision right now to get angry? Or when the guy did say, rah! No, your heart, it just went, didn't think it through. In fact, if you were to see a video of yourself getting angry, you would be disgusted. Because it's exactly that you lost all common sense at that moment. The heart went crazy. Umehalev. Now, what's the nature of the heart? Remember we mentioned the left side of the heart. Is it pumps blood all around the body and including the body is the head. The heart also oxygenates the head with fresh blood. So now, let's take this into a spiritual angle. The left side of the heart is the part that is just filled with this animalistic desire to just do all those not good things. So now it pumps that energy all around the body. So my hands want to just be animalistic, and my body, my limbs just want to be animalistic. But my brain also wants to be animalistic. So it pumps that blood and that consciousness onto my brain, and it convinces my brain to do things that are not according to my better judgment. However, look at the diuk here. It only goes to the head, whereas later we're going to see that the nefesh, it just goes up there, but it doesn't fully take over, but it will convince you. It just says la, whereas lower on we're going to talk about the godly soul goes bale, it even goes inside your heart. We'll talk about it in a second. Shibarosh, lechashev lahar behem. That's why a sin works like this. Your heart got some crazy vibe and desire to do something, and then your mind is like, yeah, I better do that. Or maybe that's even going to be good for me to do that. You'll start and I'll dream about how am I going to do that. I'm going to plan it out. And it starts fantasizing about doing it. The guy wasn't fantasizing about doing the sin if he actually thought, is this going to be a good idea to do this sin? Let me think about this. You know, a person, God forbid, says, yeah, I think it's a good idea to do adultery. Let's just think about this for a second. That's going to be good for my married life, for my career, and it's going to be good for my name. I'm really going to advance in life if I do this. There's none of that. It's his heart went out of control with emotion. It spread that energy onto his head. So now his brain started thinking and planning and fantasizing. But it was never a conscious decision. It was a decision that came from the heart. To like plot and plan how to do it. Just like the blood starts in the heart. And from the heart it spreads out to all the limbs. The same thing in the mashal. The blood goes all around the body. Okay, so first takeaway, how do I know if this decision is coming from my animal soul as opposed to my godly soul? Did it start as an emotional rush? And did I think it through as an intellectual decision? So if it started as an emotional rush, and I stop myself and think, wait a second, is this a calculated decision right now? If not, then it's coming from the animal soul. By the way, all of marketing works like this. The entire marketing world appeals to your animal soul. You don't actually make an intellectual decision. I really think I probably need to get that type of deodorant that I'm seeing or when the cheerleader comes around with the ice cream sandwiches, you know, the best thing for me to do right now would be to have an ice cream sandwich. That's going to be good for my health, and that's going to be, you're just in the moment and you just lose yourself in it, and so you buy it. He didn't buy that vehicle because the woman sitting on the car just was like, oh, she has nothing to do with, me making that decision. We get caught up and our heart goes after something, and then we fog our brains up. So if that is ever happening, it's a telltale sign that the animal soul is making the decision. What's the telltale sign that the godly soul is making the decision? We make an intellectual decision. We evaluate, is this a good thing for me? Is this right? We have a moral compass. Am I doing something that's going to bring me closer to God or further away? And then, my dear friends, what happens? That goes from my head into my heart, and then my heart gets inflamed with healthy emotion. That's called the right side of your heart. So godly decisions is I make a decision. I come to Shacharis. That is the best thing for me. I learn about Shacharis. But I don't remain in that decision as, I'm just going to be a very idle, docile chakra system. This is the greatest way to connect to God. This is something where I can speak in the most intimate terms to God, and you start becoming inflamed. You want to see what very intellectual decisions turned into very healthy emotions look like? Come to daven with us at Myers. You will see what it looks like. You will see what extremely intellectual decisions turn to unbelievably vibrant emotions look like. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I'll tell you another example. A person who makes a calculated decision that this really is the best woman for me to marry. Or a woman says, the best man for me to marry. We share the same values, we're going the same direction, we're physically attracted. It's all adding up. And then you get totally absorbed in that awareness that your emotions now can just be on fire for each other. You want to hear the opposite? The guy sees the girl at the club, has an emotional response, and then they run to Las Vegas. That's not a good marriage idea. I know I'm using extreme examples, but we have to just call a spade a spade. Okay? So let's talk about the godly soul. The place of the godly soul. The main headquarters is in my head. And from my intellectual decisions, it goes and spreads to the rest of my body. Gam balev, and also goes in my heart, deep into my heart. Yidden don't make intellectual decisions and then we just stop there. It goes deep into our emotions, which means anything which is intellectually true and you're making it you should be vibrant in the emotions. And if it's not yet, then you haven't thought about it deeply enough. You haven't really worked it through. That's why Yidden are going to be lebedik. Very lebedik. Because if really you've worked this out intellectually, and you know this is the best thing, there's a direct passageway. Get that heart on fire. Okay, that's one of the reasons why we wear our gartels here and not between the head and here. We don't put on a tie. If you want to put on a tie, it's fine. But we try to keep the pathway open. Okay? I'm not against ties, I'm just explaining some of the rationale behind them. So where does it go after the intellect? It goes into the heart. The chalal hayimani. She'ein boidan. It only has a little bit of dam there, meaning it's not as engorged as the left side, which also means it hasn't been fully oxygenated and pumped. That's the left side. Now what we're going to learn is that these two sides of the heart, they actually want to conquer each other. Meaning the right side of the heart, which is a healthy emotion, wants to take over the left side and say, I want to run the whole heart. And the left side of the heart says, don't give me this intellectually, real emotion stuff. Just have times, go to Vegas. Take the girl from Vegas. And the right side says, no, I want to conquer what's called the irkatana, we're going to talk about it. Like it says, King Solomon says that the heart of the wise is on the right. Vehi avas Hashem kirishte shalhevis mislahevis belev maskilim hamevilim isboilim bedaitim asher b'moicha b'devarim ha'ma'or misa'ava. What does it look like? What does the wise man's heart look like? It looks like a person's emotions are filled with love of God, love of their wife, love of their friends, in real meaningful ways. And love of their friends that they've decided these are the right people that I'm hanging out with. Very deep, passionate, filled with real fire. Emotion, beautiful emotion. Because they worked it through their mind has said this is the right thing to do, this is the right one to marry. Once your mind works it out, you can't marry somebody unless you know this is good. This makes sense. And the person says, but come on, it's got to be, I'm just lonely. So that's not an intellectual decision. I'm just lonely. That's a very emotional decision. An intellectual decision is we're going in the same direction. We share the same values. I see in her things that I really admire. I see good midos. It's midos. Everything is midos. I see this is somebody that would raise a beautiful home, beautiful children. That they care about that. I see that. Whereas the other side, the heart, it starts on the left side of the heart, says everything that's not a good idea to do. So when the intellectual side sees this is the right one, and they say, I found the right one, then allow your heart to be inflamed. We don't believe in cold relationships. To the contrary, it's got to be warm, beautiful, passion. The home, a married home, is a passionate place, not a cold place. It's an impassioned place. Husbands and wives have to be passionate and for each other. Because it started with I'm making an intellectual decision. It's good common sense. This is the right one. V'chein, simchus leva b'tiferes Hashem, v'hoder ga'oinoi, kasher einei ha'chacham asher v'roishai, v'moichai chachmasai v'binasai, mistaklim v'yokr d'malka, v'tiferes gedulasai ad ein cheker v'ein soif v'tachlis k'mavur b'makam acher, v'chein shar midas kedushas, shebelev hein mechabad shebemoichem. The Rebbe says also, if you start thinking of how great God is, you start doing intellectual thoughts, you start learning Derech Hashem. You spend enough time learning Derech Hashem, your mind becomes like, God, you are amazing. And you start feeling emotions of, I want to bring your beauty into the world. You feel these feelings of tiferes. These are all emotions. It started because you have a clear grasp of God's greatness. You start thinking about this. I recommend everybody learn Derech Hashem. Stark. Learn Derech Hashem. Make a Seder in Derech, master Derech Hashem. It was a piece of advice that was given to me early in my journey by a great Rav Reber, who's now in Philadelphia. He's a tremendous person. He's running a whole community there. And he said, Moshe Chaim, this is like 15 years ago, said you should try to master one or two books of real philosophy and really know them. And I said, do you have a few suggestions? He's like, Derech Hashem. And really get it and live it. It's a game changer. So you start seeing the way that God is, and then you get filled with like emotion from that. Okay, here it gets good. Now, the only thing is, you've got these two forces in your heart. The right side of the heart, which is the emotions based on intellectual decisions for godly living in this world, is telling you to follow me. But the left side of the heart is saying, just do it. Whatever that totally unintellectual, emotional, just burst is telling you to do. And they're fighting. So I want to tell you a code. The code word for this fight is Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov is the right side of your heart, and Esav, I think they translate Esau, is the left side of your heart. Whoever Esau is, we'll call him Esav. Edom. Okay? Now, every time you learn the parshas, I want you to add that dimension to your learning, that every time you see Yaakov, it's a code word for positive emotion inside of you. And every time that you see Esav and all of his shenanigans, and worse, his averus and his sick, twisted mind of his, that represents the left side of your heart. And you can learn a lot by the kind of manipulation that Esav, or in other words, the left side of your heart, your animal soul, is trying to convince you to do by seeing the things that he's all about. One of the things, if you notice about Esav, he's such a tricker. He pretends that he looks like a big righteous dude. he goes to Yitzchak and he says, Heicha na'asr nesamela, heicha na'asr nesateven. Oh, Daddy, Isaac, how do you take meiser? How do you tithe straw? How do you tithe salt? Now, by the way, you don't need to take tithes. You're not required to from the Torah to take tithes. So what was he trying to make Isaac believe? My son is so religious, he wants to take tithes on things you don't even need to take tithes on. That's the way of the Yetzer Hara, is he makes it look like you're going to be a big tzaddik if you do this thing. He's very manipulative. You have to watch out for Esav, brother Esav. You got to watch out very, very much. When Rivka was having a little bit of, third trimester issues during the pregnancy, Rivka Yemeni, and she went to Shem Ve'ever, she went to go ask advice. What's going on inside of me? So the Tzaddik Ador, the Tzaddik Emes, said, a nation from a nation shall he be victorious. What did that mean? It meant that when one will rise up, the other one will be low. And when the other will rise up, the one will be low. There will always be this. And that's what the Gemara says in many places. If you ever want to know what's going on in Yerushalayim, just go see how ancient Rome is doing. The evil empire of ancient Rome. Because if ancient Rome is doing well, then it means that Yerushalayim is down. But if in ancient Rome, it's going, remember Rome is Esav. If in ancient Rome, things aren't looking good, then you know for sure that Yaakov Avinu, the powers of pureness and holiness, are doing good. So these two powers inside of us are always fighting, and you can be certain if your mind is thinking clearly and it's going into the right side of your heart and it's on fire, you can be sure that that is suppressing down the ace of energy and the corollary. If you see that your life is being dictated by just the world of Esav and the emotions are just flying out of control, then you could finish the sentence that it must be that my intellect is not really working properly, and therefore Yaakov Avinu in his purity must be being suppressed. Yeah.
Don't we say that the more like good you do, like the tzaddik has greater Yetzer Hara? How does that work out?
So it means his Yetzer Hara is more refined, not more. It's more in very refined areas. But yeah, the tzaddik is up very, very strong. But then Esav thinks of very manipulative things.
More trickery,
very fine tachbulos to try to throw him down. But he's in 99.999% of his life, it's so clear that tzaddik is running everything. In that area, that Yetzer Hara is very good. So next time we're going to speak about what does the war look like on the inside between Esav and Yaakov, and B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to have Yaakov Avinu reigning victorious in all of us. Amen. Have a wonderful day.